All right. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I'm using AI in my daily research tasks. So, like I said, like my main job is to do research, like understanding how people use digital media, their biases, and various things like that. And I use AI extensively in understanding various phenomena in my research. So my research is in this area called computational social science, where we get and analyze large amounts of data, digital data primarily, uh, and uh, and AI has been like really helpful in this process. So, for instance, um, in the process of analyzing large-scale multimodal data sets, like multimodal meaning modality, as in images, videos, audio, text in different languages, and things like that. And previously, most analysis in my field was done on textual data because textual data was the easiest to process, and images and videos and audio and these kinds of things were not so easy to process. But now I think because of the advances in AI, these tools have become really good, like, and we are able to process data from these different modalities at scale, and that really work. So I'm going to show you a few examples. So before that, like, I also want to say that whatever work I do, and in general, I think the biggest impact of AI overall will not be in the development of these latest LLMs and things like that. It's in finding these sorts of key applications that fit your needs. So whatever applications I'm going to show you may not be probably relevant to most of you. These are very specific to my task. But I think some of these ideas might help you understand like the power and the quality of the outputs, and what these can do currently at this stage, at this time in 2025 March. But and these are getting better so quickly that they'll be much more helpful going forward as well. So I'll show you a few examples of how we process image data, video data, audio data, and some other like non-English kind of text data as well. Text data, processing text data is much more easier. People have been doing this for a while. There are lots of NLP methods, natural language processing methods. But let me show you a couple of examples of using other types of modalities. That is what I've been mainly using it for. Okay. Let me go here. So let me just put this here. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is an example of how we are using AI for analyzing print newspaper. So this is an example project, right? Like, so here we're trying to understand influence of advertising on coverage on newspaper coverage. So here's an example. So let's take this newspaper. It's called The Telegraph. It's a newspaper from India. Let's say here you have a half-page newspaper ad from the Telegraph, right? Again, I'm not sure if people have seen print newspapers recently, but these are still a big thing. Even in the US, print newspapers still, like for instance, the print edition of New York Times is still as influential, like very influential. Like a lot of people still read the print newspapers. So USA Today, for instance, is super huge and still very influential. Uh, so this sort of print advertising is a very important thing to study, and in India it's much more important. And so we collected a lot of these PDFs of print newspapers. So this is a PDF that we got a digitized news form of, like, but this is printed onto actual newspapers. And so you have a half-page ad here of Nokia. So the question we ask here is whether, for instance, if Nokia is providing a lot of ads to this newspaper, does the coverage of how Nokia is presented does that change, right? Like, so is Nokia given positive coverage, or maybe there's a scandal about Nokia, is that covered by Telegraph or not across? Because especially if we have large amounts of data covering decades or many years, then we can answer these kinds of questions. The good thing about AI methods here is that this is scalable. So you can take any newspaper and any advertisement by any company and do this type of analysis, right? Like, so one of the things that we do here is we do a lot of things about, like, how do governments advertise, companies advertise, and different types of companies advertise, and things like that. So that's the scalable analysis. Okay, what is the AI here? The AI is used to process images. So this is an image that we have. This is the first page of this newspaper on this particular day. we use different types of AI. So the first AI we use is for classification of what is an ad and what is actual text content in the newspaper. So, we identify this green part as text, this is the newspaper, news coverage, and this red part is the ad, right? Like, and is an AI that detects, okay, this is the ad and this is a newspaper. It's a classification task. Okay, after that, we use this tool. It's called Surya OCR. It's useful for detecting this sort of structured layout, especially for things like newspapers. So one of the problems in OCR is this is called optical character recognition. It's this process of identifying text from differently structured articles. Like, for instance, if you take just a PDF or a Word document, it's just one thing that is written, right, like from left to right throughout the page. But if you take a newspaper, there's these sorts of columns, and you should somehow recognize that you have to scan column by column. Otherwise, your text is garbled. Like, so if you just scan, let's say this article is by David Natalie, the idea of developing, if you scan like according to row, then this is not going to work. You have to do this sort of column segmentation and then detect column by column to give the text. So that's we use this sort of advances in OCR, and this is also possible because of recent advances in OCR. So we use, so for instance, this is one example of a project where we are trying to bring these two different AIs together to answer this sort of research question. Let me show you another example where we are analyzing audio data from podcasts. So we have a bunch of podcasts, political podcasts from the US. So, we have like, 20, 30 very popular podcasts and, thousands of episodes from those. And what we can do is we can automatically take an audio and then diarize it, meaning transcribe it firstly, meaning, convert the speech to text. So whatever we are speaking, if you use Zoom and captions, it's going to transcribe what I say, right? Like, it's converting what I say into English. So this is the process of transcribing. And then you can also do this sort of process of diarizing, which is the process of identifying if there are multiple speakers and who spoke what at what time. And this has been, again, a recent advance in AI that has helped like really process a lot of audio data really accurately. So, what we do is then in this project, like basically what we are trying to do is we're trying to understand the dynamics of toxicity in podcasts. So if someone says something hateful, what happens before and what happens after? Like, how do these conversation dynamics change? So this is our research question. And so the basic technology we use for this is this model called Whisper, which is an open source model from OpenAI. And so here's how it works. So this is the process of diarization. I'll just let you listen to this video. So basically, you can just take the audio track from this video, and then let's look at this part here. So let's see.
Thank you for calling Nissan. My name is Lauren. Can I have your name?
Yeah, my name is John Smith.
Thank you, John. How can I help you?
So you saw that like 5-second clip, right? Like, so basically what it says, it's automatically able to detect the process of diarization is saying, from second 1 to second, 1.9, this speaker 1 said, thank you for calling Nissan. From second 2.031 to 2.832, she said, my name is Lauren. Then there is speaker 0, which is another speaker. It's not able to identify this is the this is Lauren or this is a woman who's saying this. It's just saying, okay, this is speaker 0 and speaker 1. Speaker 0 is saying, okay, yes, my name is John Smith, right? Like, so that guy responded with something. So this is the process of diarization. And then we can use that to identify who spoke what when to get various types of analysis, right? Because you can know who spoke what. So you can know for instance, did Steve Bannon say something hateful or did the guest say something hateful, right? Like, so that's what we do for podcast analysis. We can then extend this to video. So we're also doing that for video. So for instance, you take a show like Tucker Carlson. I'll just again play like a 20-second clip and then we'll talk about that.
But it's a question of priorities. Why wouldn't you first put those troops on our border to protect this country?
Well, as you highlighted, our troops do great things all over the world. We're in many different countries. That's how.
And the answer, of course, no, it's much weaker than it was. So it's not working. So why would we keep doing it?
Well, First of all, we didn't have my foreign policy. I didn't set the foreign policy. You prefer to have China? That's one question
Well,
that
okay,
American
but
people
hold on.
should
But I would
ask
also,
themselves.
I
This
mean,
president, one thing this president has done is built up the military.
I'm going to stop.
So you can, firstly, you can see, just from this clip of the video is that, these people are talking over each other, right? Like, so one research question that we answered in another paper is to try to understand how much of this sort of overlapping of speech happens, right? Like, this is an indication that the quality of the discussion is not really good, like, because they are not allowing each other to finish, they're speaking over each other. So if you try to do this across hundreds of episodes, across all of the different shows, you can get a quality of like how these trends have changed over time, but also over shows and things like that. So that's one which denotes the quality of the discussion. Another is you can also just take the frames and identify the emotions of these people. Like, for instance, you can clearly see, and an AI model can easily tell whether this person here, so it can automatically identify, for instance, there are two people here, there's two men, and they are, one of them seems to be angry or upset or things like that. And the other one seems to be calm. Like, and again, like the AI models, especially across multiple types of images and data sets, this can do it very well these days. So let me try to finish this, just play 20 more seconds, and then I'll talk about the next research question that we're answering.
Stop your filibuster right there and just ask you a very simple question. So we've had your foreign policy for 20 years, and we have funded a number of foreign wars. And I would ask you at the end of that period, is America stronger than it was in 1999? And the answer, of course, no, it's much weaker than it was. So it's not working. So why would we keep doing it?
Well, first of all, we didn't have my foreign policy. I didn't set the foreign policy over the last 20 years. I didn't support the decision to invade Iraq in 2003.
So, okay, the clip continues. But one of the things that we can see here, okay, firstly, you can also identify that, they're two men, right? Like, so another question that we answered is how often are women featured on these news programs? Like, here, there's an example here of a woman participating, right? So how often are women and men featured? And there's, it's very low. Actually, women are featured maybe 20% of the time, maybe, men are featured 80% of the time, something like that. So you can also, another thing you can see here, so Tucker asked a question, like, and he said, okay, already the question was quite negative, right? And you can identify that using the transcript. But you can also see the person responding. So he's saying he's disagreeing with what Tucker said. So what we are trying to do is, again, like, take these sorts of pairs, because you can get that from the diarization. You can say, okay, Tucker said this, the guest said this. You can take those pairs and you can say, okay, they agreed with each other or they disagreed with each other. This is a rare case. This is from 2019, so already 6 years ago, of cases where, an instance of people who disagree with each other, who disagree with the host of the show, is appearing on television. So again, like, the idea is, how often do these sorts of agreements or disagreements happen? And our hypothesis here is that people who disagree with these hosts are very rare. Like, they rarely are appearing on these television shows. So we want to do this sort of analysis and try to understand how often are people agreeing with each other, how often are people disagreeing with each other, especially across different television shows across time. So this is another example of, where we are trying to use both the frames in the video, so the images, who is represented, who's talking, what are they talking. We're also trying to say whether they agree with each other or not. So this is another AI where we take the text and we try to say, okay, do these two statements agree with each other or not? And that, the text comes from another AI, which is like the sort of transcription and diarization. So this is another application of AI. Let's look at a third application, which is looking at Google Street View and analysis of Google Street View images. So these are some examples of Google Street View images from a village that we are working in India. Right, as Google is driving their cars in India in various villages, and they take a bunch of pictures like these are all streets. Obviously, some of these are not super high quality. As you can see, the street view is blurred here because of some technical issues. But anyway, you can still get like, I don't know, 3/4 of the image is still visible. And you can see, for instance, okay, people riding their bikes. You can see the quality of the roads here. You can also see things like, what are the shops here, the types of buildings, the names of establishments. So you can know, for instance, this is it's written here that this is a bank, this is a hair salon, and whatever, like so things like that. And so what we did then is we used ChatGPT to try to understand things like these kinds of things, right? Like, so this is all ideas given by ChatGPT on how you can analyze and what kinds of things it can detect using these sort of Google Street View images. And some of these are, again, like, I mean, we talked about using ChatGPT as a way to brainstorm. Some of these are really interesting. Like, I haven't thought of these, but now we're trying to use this to get a sense of like, extract all of these features from these images. So basically, we have these images in the villages. We try to extract all of these features, like things like how is the built environment? Is it semi-formal, incrementally built, underserviced infrastructure? Who is being seen there? Like, is it mostly religious, middle class, male dominated? Like, that's another thing that we realized is most of these pictures only show men in those, especially if you scale that up to thousands of locations and like hundreds of thousands of images, and you see only men in those images. That means something like that women don't usually come out in these locations and things like that. And you can contrast that with other locations. So these are, again, patterns that you can identify using large scale data. Livelihoods, is it informal economy? What kinds of shops exist, right? Is it tailoring, welding, vending? Things like public health, are there clinics? Are there banks? Are there temples? Are there mosques? Are there schools? Things like that that you can extract from these. Some of these, it can do very well. Some of these it cannot do very well. But the idea is that you average across these sorts of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of images, you get some patterns out of these. So basically, what we are trying to do now is measure whether you can take these lots of these images and then get some patterns of how where people live and the types of things that they consume digitally, because we also have some social media data from these participants. So these are good examples of how we've been using AI and what we've been doing with them, right? Like, so I showed you examples of images, audio, video, some text analysis, all of these built on top of like using AI methods. So yeah, I mean, let's talk next class on some fun things that I'm doing using AI.